Okay, I'd call this meeting to order. Recognize that the meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Lillooet Nation. Before I ask for a motion for approval of the agenda, I'm suggesting we make a slight change. Item 9.6, I'm going to clean that up and put it up to 9.2. So that 9.1, 9.2 and 9.6 shown together on the agenda, which will make things easier for that to make. So with that amendment, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda. That's Jones. Favour. Motion carried. We don't have any close, do we? No closed meeting. Consent agenda. Motion to approve, please. With Dr. Mayor, Secretary Director Birch-Jones. In favour. Motion carries. Any business arising from the minutes?
I do have some business arising from the minutes. Thank you, Chair Rainbow. I missed the meeting. I saw the presentation though online. I watched it with Claire talking about the civic address signage project. I'm really interested in extending that in area B. And I see that estimate for 83,000 for area B. And the fact that community works funds might be applicable. That would be really ideal in it, but I also see staff are looking into grants. So, and I also appreciate all the comments that were made in the presentation and that's probably quite a high estimate. And knowing what I know about the signage in area B, there's some, but there's some very big gaps. And I think as an emergency response thing, this is critical. So let me see, what are my questions? Okay, the timeline for staff to look into grant opportunities is one question. And could we also ask if indeed community works funds would be applicable? Because I would like to proceed with area B.
Who can answer that for us?
What we can do, especially for the CWF, is we can take that away and get back to you on it.
Okay.
And then the timeline, grants are a hard one.
I know.
Because sometimes it just depends when they come up, and then some grants are a 6-month lead time before you find out, and some are 1 month. So that's a hard one, but let's get the CWF answered for you, and yeah, we're happy to take those questions.
And then I see that we're going to be talking about a sign bylaw later in this meeting. So otherwise I think I can fit my other questions in when we have that presentation. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? All right, we'll move along. Number 7.1, CAO verbal update.
I want no update today. Thank you.
That's quite an update. Thank you very much. So
We got a lot ahead of you today.
7.2, request for decision notice on title construction contrary to building bylaw regulations. Mr. Beeland in area C. So.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Mr. Bayland has joined us today in the gallery, so I'm going to sit a little skewed of allowing the conversation. I'm Jay McEwen, Chief Building Official for the SOD. Okay. Our key issues and concepts. There's an error in the report. 2 stop work orders were posted on September 19th, 2023 for construction without building permits. On September 28th, 2023, the property owner was contacted by registered mail regarding the posted stop work order with instructions on compliance. On January 8th, 2025, the property owner was again contacted via registered mail regarding the stop work order. On February 7th, the property owner was contacted again via registered mail with notice that to be heard at the meeting here today. The structure on the subject property and retaining wall still exist. The construction of both issues are in contravention of the zoning and building bylaws, as no permit has been able to be issued yet. So as an amendment to our report at the time of authoring, the recommendation was from staff was that a notice on title under section 57 of the community charter be placed and that the SRD initiate a court injunction to compel the owner to complete the building permit process. Since the report has been authored, the property owner has made an attempt to apply for building permits for both the contraventions. Staff would like to retract our recommendation of a court injunction, but still pursue section 57 notice on title as we're not complete and there are multiple issues on the property. As mentioned, Mr. Belland is here to speak to his case. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from Dr. Mack?
So, the property owner is moving forward then to our desired outcome of getting permits in place as we speak.
Yeah, through the chair, yes, the property owner is moving through the compliance process. However, we haven't been able to issue a building permit yet as the applications are incomplete.
And does he need assistance filling out the applications to complete them?
To the best of my knowledge, no. Mr. Belland has had building permits with the SRD before in the past. He's not new to the building department or the building official. Mr. Belland understands the process, in our opinion, as to how to complete a building permit application and obtain a building permit.
Because the bottom line is we want these folks to all comply to move this along. We don't need to be doing court injunctions and stuff if we can get the owner to comply.
Yeah, which is why we have changed our recommendation since the authoring of this report. So.
Any other questions for Dr. Jones or Dr. Duran?
I've got one. Just looking at the first drawing or the first picture, is that where it is right now, or is that piece been built? Thanks. It looks like it's gonna be a concrete.
It's been poured. Yeah. The retaining wall and fence line on the north side of the property has been completed. So.
Okay, thank you.
I just, Mr. Ballard, did you care to comment on?
Yeah, the constant that I got is based on the fact of what was happening back in those years, like 23 starting fires and everything else. What I've done this is to provide access to the back of the property, and where there is a huge underground tank that is retaining water for fire department. I brought that up to the fire department, showing them my equipment and everything that I provided, and they were quite happy and says that they would like to register this stuff. I haven't brought that up yet, but it's things that I do by myself, and I absorb the cost to myself. And protecting the neighborhood, basically, I provide 1,200 feet of coverage by collecting water from my roofs and everything else, and providing access to the fire department of Burton, and all the equipment such as fire pumps, hoses, and equipment for sprinklers, which I've purchased last year. And I went to a meeting with the fire department. They said, well, once you've completed, we'd like to actually enter this into our, where they can add it onto their schedule for a spot they can use for fighting fires. Not only that, one is also the hydro. Hydro also did not have access to the back of the property, including the neighbors, which this offers them access where there was a transformer that blew up in 2023 just to my neighbor, and nobody could do anything. And the fire was starting to get out of control. We're down in the bank trying to put the fire out with shovels and rakes and trying to avoid the fire from spreading. So from that point, I figured it was a bit of an emergency to get this access established ASAP and provide firefighting equipment as soon as possible. And this is where it went out of control a little bit, I guess, and I should have followed the procedure, but based on the fact that I'm working 12-hour days in the Squamish development as well. It was a little tough for me to get to this point, using some of the workers that I have at when to keep them busy. My boss basically well said, hey, listen, you need help. We don't want you to kill yourself, use our employees and we can help you out to get to that point. This is where it all came down to, and like I'm willing to reply and don't like anything, and I got survey happening as we speak and issue a full survey. Everything has been approved structurally and architecturally. Geotech has been the same geotech since I lived there. He knows the property quite well. He knows it's all rock bed.
What is the impediment to, why haven't you completed the building permit?
It's just time was, I was trying to turn over 1,200 unit in Squamish and I was so busy in the process. It's taken more time than I was expecting. Basically, I get so involved in progress in projects. I started building Whistler in '86 with Paul Martin and Joe Mooney and spent 22 years of building Whistler Village in my lifetime, and I spent another 15 years outside of that. I get so involved in the projects, like I say, I do 14-hour days and for the success of everybody. Right?
You recognize that we do need an application for building permits. How, if you started today, how long will it take you to get it done?
Well, I provided lots of information already and that's why I think he's working with me now to finish off. I got a survey that may be happening and we're starting to do survey as we speak on the project.
And how long to get a building permit completed, the application completed?
How long to the completion?
To complete an application to our satisfaction.
Well, I went online at the beginning and I was confused with the system. I didn't quite get how to get in there. I had my project manager in Squamish try to help me. He says, I'm not sure. And then it's when I talked to Jay's secretary here in the office and she helped me out and gave me some pointers on how to get it.
I'm just trying to get it, do you need a year to get this done or do you need a month?
To complete the work or the
To complete the application.
I think all we need now is the survey. I think.
What do we need?
Through the chair, I'm unaware of the complete list of requirements that are outstanding. I don't think that there is much, but there is still required documentation. We're not at the position where we can issue a permit yet. So the amount of time rests solely with the homeowner. I can't. Yeah.
George Mack.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we give this individual 6 months to complete the process. And the other thing is we're getting into good weather now. So the building and the completion of this can all be done within that 6-month period. So I'll make the motion that we extend this for 6 months.
Second.
So are we looking at then at defer filing, et cetera? Okay, I'll second that, yep.
Any comments or questions?
There a way, maybe Jay, we can go through after and find out which.
Yeah, we can have a
Okay.
conversation after.
Let's take that outside the meeting. So I'll call the question on this. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you.
One more thing is that, once we complete, can we get this registered with the fire department so that they can have full access to the area? Is that something that's doable or?
I'm not sure. Yes.
I think, if I may,
Yeah.
Once this is complete, reaching out to the protective services would be your first step, asking those questions, or the fire department themselves
Yeah.
would be the first step.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move along now to 7.5. 3, notice on title, construction contractor, building law, bylaw requirements, Myrtle Meadows Incorporated, Area C. Mr. McKenna,
Here we are.
take it over.
Building permit application was received on June 8th, 2020 for a renovation to a single family dwelling. A building permit was issued in April of 2021 after full documentation was received for said property. On January 23rd, 24, the property owner's agent was emailed an inactivity warning as for the SLRD's building bylaw. Since the issuance of the building permit, the SLRD had yet to receive a request for an inspection. The letter served as notice that an inspection was required within 90 days from the date of the letter, otherwise the permit file would close as incomplete. On August 22nd, 2024, the property owners were contacted by a letter with notice that their building permit had expired and that staff would be drafting a report to the EAD requesting a notice on title. On January 8th, 2025, the property owners were contacted again via registered mail with notice that the building permit had expired. And on February 7th, 2025, the property owners were contacted a final time by registered mail that the file would be presented to the electoral area directors committee. As the work the work was commenced, no inspections were called for, the permit is expired, staff requested a notice on title be placed. Also in addition to the report, the property is currently for sale, with the property owners aware of the contravention.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, anybody?
I'm just trying to figure out exactly where this is at. So what this contravention is of an addition or a renovation to the existing structure?
Yes.
And how far along is it?
Only through the chair, only from being able to tell from the exterior that they've commenced work. So the building envelope has been stripped back. We can't tell what's been done to the interior as they haven't requested an inspection and we can't gain access to the interior of the building. So I don't know.
Yeah, same thing here. I'm gonna make a motion to give these people 6 months to complete the process. I think they need to be notified like immediately that they have to get this process completed as soon as possible. Or when they come back, if this comes back to us again, then a notice on title will be applied.
Through the chair, if I may.
Just. Okay, anybody else? I would like some clarification on this. I'm sorry, I was gonna ask Mr. McKeown to comment. There's if another staff person would care to comment, that would be fine.
I just wanted to address Director Mack's question and comment that this building permit is expired. So the property owners would need to reapply for a new building permit and a new building code would be applied to this project already. And as mentioned, the property is for sale. So the new owners would be inheriting this contravention from the previous owners, which is what we're trying to prevent with the notice on title being placed as a warning for potential purchasers that there is a contravention of our bylaw.
See, the issue I have with this is it's always a new building code that's being applied to some of these structures that are, I have no idea how old this one is. But to bring some of these buildings up to today's code is really prohibitive for financially. And Yeah, I totally disagree with that. I know that's the provincial mandate or whatever, but I totally disagree with it. It's just, it's so onerous. On one hand, we're saying, oh, we want to have affordable housing and all this, and then we keep adding layer upon layer upon layer of bureaucracy on top of everything and making everything so expensive. We've gone from $200 a square foot to $850 at least to build a house now. How can you call that affordable? It's not. So I think that we need to work with these people as much as we can to move them in the right direction and help them out. If they need assistance filling out the forms or doing whatever, or giving them direction on who they need to see or who they need to get assistance from. I think that's our job. I mean, we're supposed to be a business that provides that type of help. So anyways, I'm gonna stick with that motion I just made.
Yeah, I guess I want to comment that the thing that bothers me a little bit about this is that if the property is for sale, if it was sold soon, then the new owner is now stuck with the building, the mess. The seller is, and he wouldn't necessarily know anything about that. Whereas if there's a notice.
Well, I think that's due diligence, right? On the prospective buyer's part. And the thing is, Tony, every property in the world is probably for sale at some point in time. So yeah, I don't really put much into that.
What the notice on title, all it does is just notifies people that are looking to buy. It's a flag for them. It tells them.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that.
It's no more punitive than that. But that's my comment.
I just see, and I can't remember, once the building permit is issued, that was starting in 2020. And then 2021, this is the one we're talking about for the renovation, right? That's expired. You sent these letters, you haven't had, if I can ask through the chair, so there hasn't been, people haven't been reaching back out to you after receiving these letters. And they're not here. Yeah, mixed feelings about it. But I also sympathize with the fact that they're selling, you know, you don't know sort of what their situation is. But the buyer also is entitled to have some knowledge of this contravention too, so I have mixed feelings about it.
Sure. Is there any other extenuating circumstances with this particular property?
Well, I'm aware of it.
Through the chair, no, we haven't had a response from the property owners. A little bit more further background to the comment that you made earlier. They were issued a building permit. The entire property or the entire building wasn't required to be brought up into compliance with the current code. The homeowners had contracted a registered architect that I worked with over the course of that 9 months to get them get that permit issued, and it was valid and in place. So they were fully aware of what the requirements were. They'd met them in their application and proposal, and then never followed through with the building department on completing any of their proposed work. So for them to apply under a new building code also doesn't necessarily mean that they would need to bring the entire building into compliance. Just the proportions that they were proposing on renovating need to meet the standards in the new version of the BC building code, which to the best of my recollection wouldn't necessarily be much. It's not that onerous.
Okay. I have a motion from Director.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that on the floor.
So do you want to say it again? What do you?
To give them a 6-month window to get this, all their paperwork and the new building permit in place. And then, and if they don't do it within that 6 months, then we do the notice on title.
That's seconded.
Can I just ask a
Sure.
clarifying question?
Sure, yes.
So if they sell it tomorrow, there's no notice on title. They've got an open renovation, no building permit in process. The new owner may or may not, but hopefully they do their investigation before they sign on the dotted line. But we're not. And
The
you're
thing
right,
is, they
I'm
may
just
not
asking
sell
you
it for a year, 2 years, 5 years. You know, we can't speculate when they're gonna sell it. Right now, nothing is selling, so.
Right, I just, okay.
Excuse me. I'd just like to ask a question. Do we have any liability if we don't give a notice on title? And the person that bought it, think it would be liable in any way?
I'll defer to the CAO.
Yeah, I believe Director Belsham would refer to those liabilities to Director Needham. I would like to preface with some more 40,000 feet administrative view, which is these notice of motions are coming here as a result of new owners who have now been stuck with illegal builds that they weren't aware of at the time of purchase. The conversation was that real estate agents were not sharing that information. And it is the due diligence, I understand that. However, it's quite common that it's not discovered. And so from what I understand, this group in the past has said we need to bring some accountability and some awareness to new owners of these purchases, because then they're coming in saying, I just bought this and I didn't know. And with this house, the data point here to focus on is the house is for sale. And so will there be new owners in the next 6 months? Is there a likelihood?
We don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
And the only administrative, why these NOTs are coming, because at the back prior, there were some comments that we weren't responding enough. And we needed to respond more for the benefit of the people moving in.
Dr. Needham, would you like to comment?
I'm not aware of any case law. I'm sure it exists where somebody sued because they know that the local government was aware of infractions on their property and chose not to do anything about it. But I can't speak to any specific cases right now.
We have a motion that's not been seconded.
Another question, if I may, I just want to confirm that the building permit in this particular situation has expired.
Through the chair, yes, this building permit is
Okay.
inactive as
You
expired.
said that, I just wanted to confirm that. Yeah, okay.
When was it expired?
Through the chair, August 22nd, 2024,
Yeah,
in and around that date.
So they were advised at that time that you would be coming to us asking for a notice on title.
And again, sorry, through the chair, and again on January 8th and again on February 7th.
Okay, we need to move along one way or the other. We do have a motion proposed but not seconded, is there? No, I would need another motion.
no, I think we have some responsibility to the purchaser as well as, I'm sympathetic, but I haven't seen any indication here of this homeowner trying to reach out and work with staff. So I have a mixed feeling, but I think we have an overriding responsibility to notify a potential buyer. So I think a notice on title, especially given this meeting, is probably appropriate.
So am I
Not
hearing a
seconded.
motion then?
Well,
So motion is already,
we have,
It wasn't seconded. It's not seconded.
Can die on the floor. Wait, any motion?
can I make an amendment? To the motion?
It's not seconded.
Okay.
I don't think in procedure is. If it's moved and seconded, then you can move them in there.
Okay, I'll second it.
So yours is seconded,
Now I'd like to make an amendment. That
okay,
we give the person 1 month to start the process of a new building permit. If in 1 month doesn't respond, notice on title.
that sounds like a completely different motion to me.
If you hadn't seconded it, you could have made a new motion to.
Oh, boy, I know, okay, okay.
So the original motion being that staff defer filing a section 57 to the community charter notice on land title. And providing the owner 6 months was the original. If you are wanting to amend that by 1 month, it is a minor amendment and you could do that if you
Yeah.
like.
Just shorten the time. Okay, then I'll second the amendment. I still think it's the same situation.
So now we've got to vote on, okay, in favor of the amendment, let me call a question of that, in favor of the amendment, no, is that a question or?
No. I'm in favor of the amendment.
Okay, opposed? So that amendment carries, so now we have a motion on the floor which says that
That staff defer filing a section 57 of the community charter notice on the land title office in order to allow the property owner more time to complete the building permit process. If a building permit application is not received from the property owner within 1 month, staff is to bring this back to the EAD committee for consideration.
okay, so that would pretty well be next meeting, wouldn't it?
I'll make that motion.
No, you don't need to make that motion because you moved, we had an amendment to the original motion, so now we can vote on the amended motion. Okay? We've got there. All right, any other comments or questions? I'll call a question, all in favor? Opposed? Opposed?
Opposed.
I'm in favor, so the motion carries and you're opposed.
I am.
So we've got one. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McKeown. Are we, moving right along. Request for decision, notice untitled construction contrary to building bylaw regulations, store in area A. Please.
Thank you. Key issue, a stop work order was posted on November 24th for construction without a permit of an alteration to an existing building on Gun Lake Road West. On October 7th, 2024, the property owner was contacted via registered mail that the notice for the stop work order was posted. The property owners were requested to submit a building permit application. On January 8th, 2025, the property owner was contacted again via registered mail that the stop work order was still in effect. On February 7th, 2025, the property owner was contacted again with notice that the EAD would hear the report for the request on for notice on title. As the structure exists, construction has also encroached into the riparian setback, resulting in contraventions of not only the building bylaw, but the SLRD zoning bylaw and provincial wrapper legislation. As such, staff requests that a notice on title be placed and to initiate a court injunction to compel this owner to complete the building permit process and remove any part of the building that is not permissible at the time and repair any damage done to the SPIA. The Streamside Protection Enhancement Area as referenced in the wrapper legislation. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
No question. I'll move option 1 for adoption.
Second.
That's the first that. moved by Dr. Mayor, seconded by Dr. Birch Jones. No questions or comments?
Just a comment, this is the second one that where people have not considered the riparian area in our area. So it's, like I mentioned before, the wildfire affected properties are going through a lot to deal with the riparian area, and then we've got people that are just doing what they're doing. That picture, first picture in that really says it all. Thank you.
Anything else? No question, all in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. May I provide a bit of an update and report to the committee if it satisfies the chair?
Yeah, please.
Next month, the building department will be presenting 3 requests for decision for notice on title. And with, if it pleases the chair, an additional 3 as the 6-month clemency period that we afforded folks back in the fall has now come to expire. So without any further action. So if we can requesting permission to present 6 reports at the next committee meeting.
Fine. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
7.5 request for decision, SLRD bylaw. Is there somebody speaking to us about this? Is this you?
The signed by law? Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Good.
Floor is yours.
Yeah, so our current sign bylaw is from 1998. It's been amended a handful of times, but it's fairly out of date. So we felt it was important to update it and clean it up and modernize it. So that's the purpose of this bylaw. Few definitions were added, so there's a bit more clarity about what kinds of signs we're talking about. What else? Like there's a pretty good summary at the beginning of the report under purpose. And yeah, if there's any questions, let me know.
No questions.
Yeah, lots. Thank you. So this was something staff decided this was time to do this, if I just understood what Ms. Needham just said. So this isn't a candidate for the policy committee, for example. I think we could have a good discussion at the policy committee, and maybe save this EAD committee sometime. I could bring my questions to the policy committee, but I'm quite prepared to proceed too. But what about that question? So.
What do you think?
It's a good question. Made me scrunch my forehead and think about it. At this point, policy committee is about governance. There's a lot of focus on the governance of the operations of the organization. Bylaws themselves tend to come directly to EAD for this review, because it's public facing bylaws. If we put our bylaw amendments in front of the policy committee, we would be in a backlog. So we kind of look at the governance, the governance flow versus the public bylaw.
Okay. And I keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
So one thing, when I saw this, and I just want to confirm it, we can't actually, at this point, under our current bylaw, require residences to have civic addresses beyond that's stated 400 meters or whatever. Like, that explains some of what I learned in the presentation, the last EAD, about the civic sign project. Like, currently, we can't require civic addresses, if I'm reading this right, and this will fix that.
So through the chair, this actually has nothing to do with civic addresses.
Okay.
That's regulated under a civic addressing bylaw. This is to do with signs for advertising of commercial businesses primarily. So we don't have a lot of commercial, especially in area B. We have almost none in area D, a little in area A, some in area C, but really, there's really not too much commercial or industrial use within the region. But in cases where we do have signs, this is meant to regulate it. It prevents billboards, so, you know, you go into Kelowna and you see a proliferation of billboards everywhere.
On the reserve.
You don't see it here, you see some on the reserve here. There's a big video one in Squamish, but for the most part, our highway corridor approaching Whistler is without billboards. We did a blitz about a year and a half ago where we removed a lot of the illegal billboards that had proliferated over time. And so most of the signs that you see now are legitimately approved signs. And this just further regulates signs. We were seeing some situations where certain businesses with highway frontage would have multiple signs. And so this starts to sort of help regulate that a bit, because it can really, signs can be a real problem. They proliferate at times. And so this is just meant to clarify, regulate. It's actually a very simple sign bylaw. In the past, when I did consulting, I've worked on these sorts of things, and they can be very complex with a lot of design guides. Whistler's is a perfect example where, you know, they get into details and materials and all sorts of things, but this is a simple one.
Sorry, go ahead. Or are you suggesting I should go ahead?
No, go, I'm waiting. I'm waiting until the chair invites me to speak again.
I just wanted to make a comment myself. The area that I see as being problematic in the next, or could be in the next 2 or 3 years, is around Britannia Beach. We've got, you know, they've got a big sign up on the roof now at Britannia Village to sort of give it that little commercial area a name. But I've already had questions from people running businesses in there about, can they put a sign up down on the highway? So there will be some kind of some sort of pressure to provide information on the highway. Maybe the answer there is sort of an official blue highway sign, which doesn't exist at the moment. And the same, I can see the same thing happening with Furry Creek as there's some development there. So I think having a clear bylaw that was very specific, it will help us deal with it. Because we really don't want to see 57 signs between Furry Creek and Britannia Beach. So that was my comment. Director Bush-Jones.
And I'm with you on the intent of this. I do get that. But if we can just go through, I just had questions as I see that property owners may seek an exemption by submitting a development variance permit to the Director of Planning. And can that just come to you, and have you got Ms. Needham through the chair delegated authority? What would be a typical turnaround time to do a variance of this type, and what would be the cost?
This, by virtue of this bylaw, this would give me the delegated authority. It's usually just a desk review, so it wouldn't take probably more than an hour to review each. And it would typically be something where maybe the dimensions of the sign were slightly different, or maybe because of their sighting, they needed an extra sign or something like that.
But from the time that somebody asks for a variance, that's great. It takes about an hour to do a desktop review. I understand that. So if somebody made the inquiry about a variance, how long would it take before they got an answer on that, and how much would that cost? That's my question.
I think the cost of DVPs is, I don't have it committed to memory, but, we do have a price for DVPs. I think it's under $500. Maybe $275. We've got a long menu of prices.
So moving on. I'd like to know that. I think it's 300. You think? Okay,
Keep going.
Yeah.
okay. That's significant. I find this, you're describing it as simple, but I found it fairly strict. And I can think of a lot of offside signs off the top of my head, but when I reviewed it, a lot of them are actually in the district or the municipalities, not so much, for example, in Area B. An example, notwithstanding, so I'm looking at C. Notwithstanding the number of existing signs on a property, signs erected by the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District or other government authorities in the execution of their statutory duties shall be permitted on any property. So we can put up signs if it's related to our authority as the SLRD, and an example would be.
Oh, if we were putting up a warning sign in a neighborhood,
Okay, great.
if there were a disaster.
Okay, safety stuff, perfect.
Yeah.
Or like the COVID things that we did a few years ago, okay. And so the cost is around $300 and the turnaround time for a development variance permit?
Hi,
We got, on the costume.
thank you. Just looking it up, the cost of a DVP is $300. Brackets fees are subject to change at the direct discretion of the SLRD.
At the discretion of the board, so that's not a delegated authority.
But for fees, because the fee bylaws are board, and so if there was a request to change this bylaw, it's basically a catch to update the website. If any changes, there's time to update the website. So, but right now I can confirm $300.
There's no fee for putting up a sign. It's only if you want to vary from the regulations of the
Okay,
bylaw.
good, got it.
Yeah.
Now, the signage officer, which would be you guys. Does the property owner get any kind of warning or notice before? I think the bylaw, the signage officer comes up and just takes down the sign. And they have a full 10 days before they inform the property owner that it's the SLRD that's taking down the sign. I could see, you know, somebody wondering what happened with their sign, and that would create some confusion in the neighborhood. Why wouldn't we inform the property owner that we were removing the sign at the same time as we were removing the sign instead of 10 days later?
We've only done one, well, no, we've done 2 blitzes in the time of this bylaw. And when we did it a year and a half ago, we informed people, probably a couple months in advance, and then we advised them again.
So
And
there
then we
was
did it.
notice. There was a notice.
Yes.
So I don't really see that notice here in this bylaw. Is it here somewhere that I didn't see it? I did read this like last evening, so I'm not as smart in the evening.
Yeah, no, there is no notice, but we do that as a courtesy.
Well, I think that the fact that there's notice ahead of time to the property owner should be included.
Okay,
So a lot of these reports come to me and I ask questions, and then not having a notice there is for safety reasons. If a sign has critical safety to the community or the environment, then why it's built in like that so that it can be removed. Our service delivery commitments, we don't do that unless it's a safety issue, but having a notice built into the bylaw would prevent us from reacting in the consideration of public safety.
Although it could be worded such that notice will be provided to the property owner before or at the time of removing, unless there was blah, blah, blah. I would suggest some of that wording goes in there so that we know that that's protocol that we follow. I mean, that seems like just a basic courtesy, and it would prevent confusion in the neighborhood when the signs disappear.
Okay. So are you wanting to move that?
I would like to see that
Amendment, right?
included. I would like to see that included as part of the bylaw, and I understand that. Ms. Needham is saying, well, yeah, that's what we do, and of course we would do that, but I think it's a courtesy that we should include as part of
And
our
I think,
process.
if I may comment on that, when you look at a bylaw, we shouldn't be considering who's making the decisions right now.
True,
We
For
trust
sure.
the people that are making the decisions right now. In a year's time, it may be different people. In 10 years' time, it's definitely going to be different people. So, oh God, is that me? Sorry.
okay, so for some wording, just that.
Well, if you look at option 2, it's refer back to staff for more information or revision. So it could be a suggestion that there be a revision to accommodate that.
Okay, is that acceptable then? That just accepted as a comment, a suggestion? Or do I need a motion?
Do we need to a motion on what revisions we're looking for, or?
I would like to add, recognizing this being an important service delivery I'm hearing, that my concern would be writing operations service deliveries into bylaws will get us down a very difficult place. And the trust of the operations of the organization and how we go should be addressed outside of the bylaw in those cases. With this specifically though, I think it's totally valid for us to look into it and look at other bylaws that are around it, to see if it also is included and what our thoughts are. We have really professional staff, and I would refer to Director Needham for comment on.
I have some wording, so that we don't have to bring this back again. The SLRD will attempt to notify property owners and owners of sign removal within 30 days in advance of action being taken, except in the event of an emergency or if the signs pose public safety concerns.
That sounds good, and I don't even think you need as much as 30 days, but
Okay, so that would satisfy your concern.
mhm.
So, Dr. Needham, you're suggesting you can amend it to include that?
Yeah.
So we don't
Then I can provide Ms. Belsham with the language.
need a motion on that. That can be included in the.
That can be included in the motions that we have here, that staff update with the feedback received from the board. And if we're wanting to move this to the board this month, we can do that by writing it into this this resolution. So that we're not waiting a whole month in which to bring it back to the committee if they're comfortable with the discussion.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move in that, so that's that item taken care of. Okay, next one.
Under temporary signs, number 3, temporary banners may advertise one specific event occurring on parcels other than the subject property, provided the event is in the electoral areas of the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. Do we want to restrict ourselves to that? I mean, I can think of events. Well, the one that, like when everyone walking back from the residential school and going over the bridge and so on and so on. Like there's a lot of events, even Slow Cycle in Pemberton, for example, like there's different events that aren't in the electoral areas that I don't know that we want to limit ourselves to on the temporary banners. I can think of lots of practical examples. You may want to promote an event that's farther away. I think there's some restrictions in here that aren't necessary. And also, you know, those temporary standing flag banners, for example, that we have at the farmer's market and so forth, and then okay, so that's in the district, but the vape shops and also, okay, and I'll make this my final copy. This obviously doesn't apply to on reserve, although it states all of the SLRD, right? And so I wonder if we should clarify in this bylaw that it isn't applicable to the reserves. I wonder if we should start thinking about that in some of our bylaw language, because we know that that's how it is, but I don't know that that's obvious to everyone, right? Have we given any thought to that?
Yeah, you raised a couple of points. We have no authority to regulate land use on the reserves.
Got it.
So that's, the answer to that. And then, with respect to banners, the SLRD has the Reserve Municipality of Whistler right beside it, and it is an event machine, right? So if we're allowing banners going up and down the corridor for every single event that's going on in Whistler, one can imagine that that could really start to get a little bit messy on the highway.
But what happens in Whistler is pretty different from what happens up in Lillooet and Area B and some of the other areas, so I get it, so you're making that rule for that purpose, so I'm just wondering if it might not be a bit restrictive for some of the outlying areas. And I'll just leave my comments at that I think there should be some consideration of making this a little less restrictive to encompass the entire SLRD and not just the neighborhood of Whistler. And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? The only comment I would add is that, you know, with regard to signs, we rely on tourism. And so, I think rely on, it's a really important part of our economy in the city of Squamish. And so tourism, you need some signs. You need, you know, people that, Whistler probably doesn't need anything. In a sense that people are coming from thousands and hundreds of miles away, they know where they're going to Whistler. And but there are other things in our area where we maybe do need signs, and I think of experiences in Europe where, you know, you look at necessarily big billboards, but quite tasteful little signs that direct tourists to certain destinations. And I'm not sure whether that would fit into this or not, but I'm not prepared to suggest any changes. But just for us to keep that in mind, that we want to attract people to come here. We want them to stay here. We want to spend money here, and some signage is necessary. But I think we can work with this one. Anyway.
Chair, I have one more comment.
Oh, one more comment.
Reading these definitions, I had a hard time with some of them. For example, controlled access highway means a highway or portion of a highway designated controlled access by the Lieutenant Governor and Council pursuant to Section 48 of the Transportation Act. So I kind of had to scroll around a little bit to understand what that actually means. And I just wondered if, I mean, because this section is titled definitions, wonder if staff can have another look at it and just make it definitions that the average person could actually make some sense of. Because some of them I found a little bit challenging, like that one in particular. I'm happy to help with that.
Through the chair, a controlled access highway is defined.
I know it is.
So, I'm not sure how else we would want to define it as, like, that's sort of the official way that it's defined.
What does that mean though, controlled absence? Absence,
There are there are various access points coming onto it, so basically the sea to sky is considered. I mean, we could do something like that, we could call it sea to sky highway. Yeah. I can look at this before the board meeting to see if there's any simplifying that we could do.
This is a kind of discussion that would be good at the policy committee, for example. But I'm happy if you'll look at it again, but you know, just sort of set aside all your professional knowledge and just trying to look at it as a public person. Some of the language is unnecessarily confusing. I had to go back and forth.
Yeah.
I think, you know, what is it, exactly what you're saying, Vivian? What is it control? Access to highway, stop signs, lights, the list goes on and on, yield signs. Basically, what it's trying to say is, don't have anything within this proximity of it. People have to pay attention to the other controlled signs that are on that highway.
Sorry.
Pretty basic, and that should be pretty simple to do.
I thought it meant a freeway. No, I wasn't sure what it meant.
If we help with the clarification, but with the sea to sky, and then just so that we're all kind of in agreement about that, the sea to sky actually stops Pemberton Mount Curry, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Um,
another point for another time. That's great.
Maybe
What were we trying to say to staff then? What do we want to do with this?
I would like some common language that would be intelligible to sort of an average person. And I really appreciate that staff work with this language all the time, and it's not hard for them to understand this, but I had a little trouble with it. I had to go back and forth a bit, so. I just want things to be simple so the public can understand them and then they can follow the rules.
And this is a recommendation to the board. We're not dealing with this right now.
No, this is to staff.
We're making a recommendation to the
To
board.
staff.
No,
just comment, I believe what could help here is we keep the definition as it is, because for legal purposes, we need to stay consistent with definitions. We include examples after the definition.
That would be fantastic.
so with the options that we're given here, we should recognize that we are making a recommendation to the board. That's what the option is.
No. I think with respect, Chair Rainbow, we're giving feedback to staff here. And then, then I think what will come to the board will incorporate some of these
absolutely.
comments and suggestions. And that's probably the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah, I was just trying to make sure we understand that this is, the decisions are now
Right.
moving forward. Okay. So, Director Needham, may I ask you, are you comfortable with what you've heard and what we would like you to consider before it comes to the board?
Yes, we will include the new language in the bylaw, and in advance of the board meeting, we can review it to make sure that it's a little simpler.
So we should pass a motion which reflects that.
I have something written.
Oh,
if you'd like to-
That's very
Save me
helpful.
again.
Yeah.
Very good.
That staff make changes to bylaw number 1885, 2025 to address feedback provided by the Electoral Area Directors Committee in regards to notification of sign removal and simplification of definitions.
Yeah.
I'd like to move that.
You'll move that. Very good. Second by Dr. Mack. Very good. Any more questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question in favour. Opposed, no one. That's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Edson. Thank you for your assistance.
For clarity, are you wanting this bylaw to come back to the EAD committee, or would you like to recommend that it flows through to the board for next month with those amendments?
I would think we could move it. My opinion would be we could move it forward to the board now. We've had a discussion here. Do we need-
So would you like to
do we
make
need a
that
resolution?
motion that it be recommended to the regional board, that bylaw 1885/2025 with amendments be introduced and given first, second, and third reading, and then be adoption, so that that can flow through to the board at next month's meeting. So this is a recommendation
I
to
feel
the,
like that's the motion that was just passed.
Well,
Yeah.
staff has time between now and the board meeting is probably my question.
It wasn't quite the motion. There wasn't a wording of the motion we passed. It's not going to.
It doesn't, yeah, I feel like the motion captured the intention of the conversation. Move it forward.
that's, we can write it as such, if that was the intention of the committee. I was just clarifying.
I'm not just sure we should say next month. Should we put that? How long is that going to take it?
We can do it this week.
So it could be in the,
We can
okay,
come back to the March board.
okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm just gonna step out for 2 minutes.
5 minutes. We're going to have a 5-minute break. Thank you very much for this meeting back to order, and welcome Colin to us, to the table. And we're going to talk about select funds.
Good morning, everyone. This is the March Select Funds Report. I'll maybe let's open up for questions on any of the items in the report.
I've got a couple of questions on general, and then I'm going to shut up. That goes to Cascades Grizzly Bear Initiative. There's $5,000. Where are we at with that? Does anybody know?
I don't think people are taking advantage of the opportunity. Director Marcus is mouthful, otherwise I wouldn't say anything.
That's a year ago, and I wonder why it hasn't been spent.
Well, in terms of funding, we provided 5,000 in 2024, and we've sent another 5,000 in 2025. So that's why this amount is still showing up, but we did pay that amount out in 2025.
Oh, we did? Oh, okay.
Excellent.
And the other thing I was gonna ask Russ at some point, you got portal identification for Area C for 10 grand. It's been there 10 years. I just wonder. I'll just give you a little nudge there. Either stick up some signs or.
Way back in the day before I was here,
Yeah,
the previous director had quite a lot of money in different areas. And she was advised at the time to start parking that money in different areas. Just so that we don't get these questions, well, why do you have all this money sitting here and you're not using it? So I have no idea where that came from, and how long it's been there.
it was there. I had 10,000 with the same when I first started.
So I'll leave that for you to answer.
Well before my time, but
Yeah.
if
Well, before my
it's not
time too.
needed, we could reallocate it back to general select.
That was my suggestion. We don't have that much in general select. We often have suggestions that we do something there, and I'm just asking Russ if you need it. It really has been there ever since we joined the board.
Yeah. Well, should it not go back into Area C select funds?
Of course.
Because that's where it probably came from.
I can review where it came from and
Yeah, please.
update you on
Yeah.
that, and then we can make a
We'll figure it
decision.
out.
Yeah.
I think that
Because the question, if you don't want, the question I was gonna ask, we only have like 14,538 in general select. That's not a lot of money, like you could
You can spend that.
spend that in about,
5 minutes.
yeah, I was thinking maybe less, yeah, so.
And I was thinking that money came from General Select.
Oh.
You know, that within General Select, 10,000 was offered to each A, B, C, and D. A used it at some point,
Yeah,
B's used most of it at some
Yep.
point, and then
As soon as I found out what that meant, I remember asking
yeah,
Linda Flynn.
and I used mine for signs for the biosphere.
Nice.
The plaque things that I've got around.
well, you search it out, but if anything, I would like that area C's then to go back to area C select funds. Cause then it can be used for whatever in area C, right? If it's area C money, cause you guys have already spent all of yours or the majority of yours. Anyways, you're gonna check that out?
I can look into that.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm with you on it.
Thank you.
Very good, well, that's the only comments I've got. So,
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, if that's the case, then if it goes back into the respective electoral area, then by all means move that 1,300 back to area B. Or if it happens to have come out of general select, then move it back into the general select.
It's in General Select now.
It is.
And it seems to me that
We could use
at
some
some point, General Select would have been divvied up to and identify
Probably.
those things, so I think it should stay in General Select, but we'll see.
I will confirm the source of
We'll figure
those
that out.
funds and I will reallocate it to wherever it came from. Whether that be general select or the actual individual area select accounts.
Thank you.
Right on, thank you.
Yeah,
Right,
in area A, that money was used as a much bigger project as part of it, was those kiosks, the timber frame kiosks. For the whole project was around 85,000.
Nice.
okay. Any other questions or comments for Colin? Yes?
Of course, I have one from area B. I see that we increased the appreciation fund. And I'm glad for that. I also see, looking at area B, for some reason, we still have the 2023 with the plaque and appreciation event for retiring Fire Chief Darren Noike. We still have that one listed there. Is that one should be wrapped up now? No, not yet. Okay, okay.
The guy sitting behind me.
I had this sinking feeling while I was saying this, you're missing a receipt or something, but
I
then
am.
since then, I had the appreciation for Ms. Rasmussen when she quit being the chair of the AAC, and I don't see that here, and that was more recent. So I was just trying to follow what you were showing, not showing. Oh, it's up above as,
The $100,
It's there,
so that's been
it's
taken
payroll
out of the
reimbursement.
appreciation fund, which is why it's at
That's why
900,
it's
not
900.
1,000.
that answers all my questions, thank you.
AF, you said, that's appreciation fund.
Okay, great.
I had to abbreviate it to make it fit.
Okay, anything else? Motion to receive, or is that what we
So
need?
moved,
Motion to
yeah.
receive? Moved by Scott, second. Demand? Favour, opposed, motion carries. Colin, thank you very much. Now, you're on again.
Yeah, you got me one more time.
Yes, we do. Canada Community Building Fund, previously the Gatsby's one, Community Works Fund. Okay, what do you want to say to us?
This report is just requesting the allocation of Area C Community Works funds to two projects at the Divine Water System. One is for 26,000 for a new bulk water meter, and the second is 55,000 for the replacement of the pump control panel.
And I'll move both of those back.
Well, second,
Second, okay. This is not the one we're having problems with, the water system.
Potentially.
Right. And this will resolve the problems, good, very good. Any comments or questions? No? Call the question, all in favour? Opposed, motion carries. Good, now we're on to draft EAD service budgets. Are you going to help with this, Colin? or- Sorry, did I miss something there?
I'm slow on the uptake, so if I could ask a question about community works funds. Do you
Well,
believe,
back up, ask the question.
but yeah, if you don't mind, I'm just wondering about a feasibility study on a community water system. If staff could just do a little bit of investigation on whether or not that's approved use of community works funds.
Like
Feasibility study as to whether or not communities should have a shared water system.
believe there is like a capacity building
I thought so
funding
too.
stream under the community works funds. I'll just have to confirm that it fits under that, but I can connect with you offline.
That would be fantastic. That's all right. Thank you.
Okay. Good, along then, so we've now got the budgets now. Are you doing this with us, Colin? or
I'll stick around, but Suzanne's gonna
Suzanne,
discussion.
is she with us?
She's here in the office.
Oh,
In
okay.
person.
That's
She is in person today.
The other one I'm playing with in terms of community works funds is civic address signage. Maybe.
Where was my mouse?
From my footwork, it looks okay.
Take your time. Okay, we're on draft EAD service budgets. Do you have anything that you'd like to present to us, or are you just here for questions?
Sure, I can just do a quick presentation. So the EAD budgets are here for recommendation for approval to the board. And they do include there's two changes that were added to these rounds. The transfer from the operational surplus reserve for the building inspection services was increased. And so the transfer in for 2025 is now $154,403, leaving $212,000 still available for future use. But it brings down the requisition rate to a 3.4% increase, or $3,209. And that was the building inspection service. Everything else remained the same. I highlighted any little changes. And then the emergency planning, the tax rate now equals a 3% increase, or 17,440. There was some changes in salaries. I inadvertently added more salary than was required. I added some information about potential dedicated fire chief vehicles for funding as well, and that's the emergency planning service. So the available options basically would be taxation within the service, and that would be maintenance and fuel as well. And or Area C amenity funds. However, the CAC policy amenity funds that we receive through rezoning wouldn't be applicable to this. Just the regular IPP, an independent well project amenity program, or select funds. And potentially community works funds if it is a fire truck, and that would have to just be confirmed through UBCM. And overall, the EAD budgets now have a tax impact of approximately $160 for $1 million assessed value of home, which is actually a decrease of 8 cents over 2024's tax rate due to assessment change.
Mhm. Go to Matt.
Yeah, so with the different funding opportunities for that fire chief's vehicle, I would certainly go with the Community Works Fund first. Hopefully we can make that happen, and if we can, that's wonderful. And then if we can't, then I'd have to have serious thoughts about using, I don't want to use select funds because I don't have a lot of select funds. Don't have enough to buy a truck, that's for sure. But yeah, anyway, so try the Community Works Funds first, and then we'll go from there.
We'll
Yeah,
send
got some
it,
other. I'm sorry.
so yeah, we'll send a request into the
Yeah.
just to confirm if that eligible.
And I guess just one point, so it's for a pickup truck. For the fire chief, like a fire chief, whatever you want to call it. We, I guess as an organization, we buy, we more or less Toyota trucks, is that correct? For products?
That's an operational question that I would refer to Director Butt, who's not here at the moment, but it could be a question that could be taken away.
Well, whatever, I mean, let's figure out if we can use the money first, and then we can decide on the rest later.
Are you suggesting we specify a pickup truck?
Well, yeah, that's what the fire chief needs, he needs it.
I didn't know if it, because I see fire chiefs in sort of SUV type trucks as well.
No, a four-door pickup truck, just like these guys have got downstairs.
But, yeah,
So you can put people in them to move people around,
yeah,
and you've got a box to put all your fire equipment in.
okay, thank you. I've got two people, Director Ford, Director Westhouse.
I just had a clarifying question. Is there any general fund that this could come from? Because it was my understanding from the last discussion about this, that we wanted this to be for the fire chief to be able to travel the whole region. And so it should be equally shared amongst, in my remembering the conversation. I don't want to get into the gravel about four-door, two-door pickup truck or not pickup truck, but just about where this money is coming from. It feels like it's not gonna be isolated in one area. It's
No,
it's meant
for
to
the
be
whole-
shared by the whole
For the
region,
whole SLRD.
which was how I recall. So,
Yeah.
is that possible?
So.
To spend
municipalities as
general-
well?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, it
Yeah.
could be placed into general government, if it's for traveling to the municipalities.
Not that they would be providing service within the municipalities. For clarity, the regional fire chief was meant to coordinate and collaborate the whole region emergency services rather than it being responding only to one area or another. I think that's how we delegated that role to be a regional service shared amongst the.
And that fire chief, he coordinates with the municipal
Yeah.
fire departments on a regular basis, so yeah, it's all part and parcel.
Noting that there isn't a general fund,
Okay,
it would be general government taxation.
right, okay,
So there is an issue there
Yeah.
potentially.
right, okay.
So we could come back later with regard to a determination of where the money's coming from.
Asking for feedback on where it could come from, rather than just these three options.
Yeah,
Just for clarity before a decision is made. I
Okay.
think that's what we were hoping.
yeah, just out of the interest. Director Jones?
Two questions. It was just like what Director Ford just mentioned. I thought, why is only Area C? I mean, I know you've been bringing it up, but I didn't think that Area C should be solely responsible unless the fire chief's just gonna work in Area C, which I certainly hope he's not. That this is a regional service, and I agree that it includes the municipalities. And so if there's other ways to fund it, I was also thinking of chipping in, and then I was trying to decide what was fair, and that was giving me a headache, but I mean, I hope that this truck will be driven up to Area B by the fire chief. And I had one other question, just that I can't remember what this fire service modernization project is.
Where are you referencing that? Oh, yeah, got it. Okay.
Want to go with?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, through the chair. I'd like to remind everyone that it wasn't a recommendation from staff to have a dedicated fire truck, and it still is not a recommendation from staff to have a dedicated fire truck. The need of the organization is for a truck for a lot of purposes to be used, and that conversation turned into this.
Okay,
There are operational personnel contracts regarding use of vehicles when it comes to doing the course of the business that are laid out in detail to support staff. And so I just want to make sure that that's known, because we come with a lot of asks and recommendations. So I just want to make sure everyone knew that that wasn't. Director Phillips wasn't here last month. So I would like to give him an opportunity to both answer your question about the fire modernization, which we both agree might need a new name, and the fire truck.
Thank you. Yeah, through the chair, I will note that our fire chief, to promote his kind of travel for the region, does get supported with travel to the office already, to encourage him to actually go to our communities where he can get a truck and then continue on. I would love to dig into this a little bit further with the fire chief, but I would note that general availability of a vehicle is important for our emergency planning team and other staff and our fire chief. And so I think that for us is probably the most efficient thing also, is to ensure that there's that general availability across the organization, including for our fire chief and our emergency program and wildfire mitigation team as well. But I'd love to dig further into that and see, options.
Yeah, I think it's, as I mentioned at the last board meeting, look downstairs here, this volunteer paid on call fire department. Both deputy chief and fire chief have a truck. Your deputy chiefs, fire chiefs all have vehicles to use. Well, they do.
I don't know.
Same with Squamish and Lillooet. They have dedicated trucks for that position. And, you know, if you need a truck for the overall emergency program, then we need to step up. But the fire chief, in my mind, should not be, having to worry about if he has to go, say there's a fire situation, he needs to go to Gun Lake. He doesn't have to worry about coming here, because it's going to be, I got to go now, get in the truck and go. He doesn't need to be worried about coming here, hoping there's a vehicle here that he can use. I think that position, never mind the fire chief, but that position of the fire chief needs a dedicated vehicle. Like I say, that's just the way the operation works. And to think that, that person will drive to the office and hope that there's a vehicle here, because some days there aren't vehicles here. They're all in use. So anyways, I think we need to discuss that, and seriously, because we want the fire chief, we want our fire departments to be as engaged and active as possible. We want to give them as much support as we possibly can. That's why we hired a regional fire chief to help these folks out. Your department, you've got all the chiefs, deputy chiefs, training officers, all that stuff. Same with Squamish, but and even Britannia are pretty well managed. But some of our outlying fire departments, they can definitely use some expertise and some help to organize and to make sure things are going. And like I've said to you so many times, that fire chief needs to be out and about talking to the fire chiefs of these little departments to make sure that they're all on the same page. They know where we as an organization want to go and all that stuff. So anyways, enough said.
I thought in the budget, using LG cap, that we're purchasing another vehicle for staff, correct? I think that was like $80,000 or something.
But it might be higher than this.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, that, so we're already adding another vehicle. So this is on top of it. Correct? Yeah, and more specific to one position.
Okay, good questions.
Just, I still have my question about fire service modernization, but also, do we see this fire chief going out to the electoral area? The fire brigades that we have, is that sort of part of what we see as the routine job? Because then I'm more in support of the truck. Through the chair to Mark.
Yeah, to the chair. Starting with the fire modernization project. This is really about taking the review that Chief Van Dern undertook.
Yeah.
And to go through that process of making sure that we understand our roles. We're on the same page with the societies, understanding our roles related as to fire brigades, and also working with the board to understand our obligations and the direction we want to take and the way that we want to work with these fire societies. So that's really what this is about, is that this is trying to get third-party support to help our regional fire chief to move this forwards. And at that point, as we start to better define our relationship with society-based fire departments and brigades, it will create the space for which our regional fire chief can better engage and better support these groups across the region.
Okay.
Yeah, I reviewed the recommendations from the fire service review. And I like what's in there. And hopefully that is what this modernization will address. And that's lots of community engagement.
Yeah, certainly through the chair.
That's the critical part. You can't get community engagement unless you're out there in the various areas.
So the chair, the fire review is the basis for what we're hoping this project will achieve, and the main questions that need to be answered. And a big part of that is consulting with the board and also consulting with those societies and the communities to understand what their wants are for fire services.
Our regional fire chief is going off to support a department somewhere where perhaps there was a bushfire or whatever it might be doing. We're suggesting he shows up in a truck that's equipped to support fire crews in some way, whether it's got foam or whatever it's got on the back. We'd rather that happen than have him drive here and pick up a CRV and show up in a CRV, which is that's basically what I think Director Mack is saying.
It's not equipped to fight.
No, exactly.
Providing
Exactly.
fire.
Not.
Chair, I think I think on behalf of our regional fire chief and myself very much appreciate the support and this one for this. I do feel like these questions about what is our relationship to this group and what is the actual operational role of our regional fire chief when it comes to these societies. Right now, it's an advisory, it's a point of contact. But as we start to better define these relationships and the way that the SLRD can effectively work with these groups, then we'll have a better understanding of the travel needs of our regional fire chief and things like that.
Okay. 1, 2.
In that case, and I also appreciate there's a lot of changes happening between who's going to be overseeing the cooperative community wildfire response and so on. I get that that's shifting and I'm worried about role confusion and lines of communication and all of that coming up. But given that amount of uncertainty, I'd like to see the fire service modernization project completed, and then we should make the decisions that would fall out of that. That kind of makes sense to me. I hope it would be sooner rather than later, but things move at the pace they need.
The sooner than later, it was $80,000 and we split it in half. We do half this year and half next year. So it's going to be later than sooner.
Director Mack?
Exactly what Vivian said. This has to happen sooner than later. I mean, the last few years, we've had serious fire situations throughout our area, more so in the northern areas. But at some point in time, it's gonna happen in the Sea to Sky corridor, where we're gonna have a major fire. And we just need to be better equipped from our point of view. You guys do a wonderful job, amazing, and I applaud you for that. But it doesn't mean that you don't need more help, right? And more equipment or whatever, just to make it more efficient and like response time is the number one thing. So I think this is really, really important. And I mean, like I say, if it comes down to the money end of it, then I would be willing to put Area C Community Works funds, if possible, towards buying that truck and dedicating it to your department, whatever. And then we'll worry about balancing that payment out at some other point in time. But I think it's really important to get ahead of this game. I mean, we've got a regional fire chief who needs to have more engagement and more, I'm not gonna say authority, because he's got all the authority that he needs. But I think engagement is the number one thing. So anyways, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
With a recommendation, like a resolution, and then maybe there could be a board, a report done on this. And because there's just too many differing ideas of what's gonna happen. And I think that we might need to have someone review and then come back and report.
So a resolution to ask staff to bring a report back to the board with regards to this fire truck. Okay.
Where the funding may come from?
The whole
whole-
process, because
okay.
there's differing ideas of what this truck should be doing.
Okay,
It's gonna be for one person or.
right to the man.
So we're working through the budget for emergency planning.
Mhm.
So if we trying to find the line where the where we split it 40 1 year and 40 the next year. And the question is, do we want to bring it all back into 1 year?
I don't know where that line is.
About splitting, it's at the top of page 62 in the original package.
I've got page numbers here.
Page 62 of the report.
It's 50570 consulting other. So it's kind of in the middle of second page of the budget for the emergency.
505.
70. Phase one is meant to be
Oh, yeah.
30,000 and that's meant to be completed in 2025, and phase two started with 10,000 in 2025. Completed in 2026.
Yes.
Through the chair, the reason, and Rob, Bender will be coming to the board with a report, this month to the board. And the reason for, splitting it was, related to as kind of phase one, is about understanding and kind of asking those critical questions about what is our roles, responsibilities, what are the policies, bylaws that we need to actually, support these groups, and the decisions that we need to make before we start supporting these groups and how these groups will work in the future. Given that the outcome to those answers will define what the next step is in terms of the consultation with the community and actually implementing that, we wanted to give ourselves some room because I think there will be a challenge to going straight from making those decisions to having a consultation session. So that's the rationale as to why we spread it over a longer period of time and to put it across too.
I'm sure it was 80,000 first year, and then it was us to split it. So to split that cost because of the amount of taxes. But to everybody's point, Vivian, Russell, Tony hasn't spoken yet, but it's important. And just wondering what it would take to do all both phases in 1 year. Could that be done?
Through the chair, I can talk to Rob Vandern on this, and he will come back in March, and that's something that we can discuss before the March board meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so from my point of view, we hired a regional fire chief. We expect him to be in area A, in area B, in area C, and in area D. The nature of the position is such that there may be situations that are of an emergency nature where he's going to get from A to B very quickly. If you look at fire departments, as Director Mack has pointed out, fire departments have vehicles for their chiefs and their deputy chiefs. And we have a situation here where we've hired a regional fire chief, and we're saying use your own vehicle, which is not equipped as in any way as a fire to support fire suppression. And so I just put on record that I'm supporting what Director Mack, his position. I would be in favour of going ahead with this, even though there are other people in the employ of the regional district who need to go from one place to another at certain times and need a vehicle, and we have vehicles for them. And if there's not one available one day, it requires somebody to go to area D to look at some sort of problem. It can sort of problem that can probably wait till the next day. If it's a fire going, you can't wait till the next day. And I think if that person, wherever that person happens to live, they need the fire truck where they are living so that they can come out of their residence, jump in it and get to work right away. So that's what I think. Let me ask, Belsham, do you have a suggestion for us of what a resolution might be at this point?
I'll defer to the CAO.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that we do have trucks available for the fire chief, so we're not asking them to use their own vehicle. It is about insurance and policies of parking a vehicle at a residence, which can be addressed, and I would maybe give us a year to get that in. The fire service review would do that for us. I just wanted to clarify, we do have, and at any time when the fire department or emergency service or anyone needs a vehicle and it's not available, we prioritize. We definitely, there's not a time that we haven't heard that this is a problem when it comes to responding to emergencies. I just want to clarify that. When it comes to a recommendation on moving forward, it sounds like there's a couple of things that have been addressed. The truck, the fire modernization and the 80,000 versus the 40,000. Sounds like that answer will happen in the next couple of weeks, if that's satisfactory. And I would defer to Director Birch Jones to see if we need a recommendation for that, or we can, it's coming to the board.
Belsham, I think you mean.
Or Belsham, thank you.
I'm deeply flattered.
Thank you. In order to follow up with Director LaFrance's recommendation around getting a recommendation specific to vehicle use, I think that would likely be helpful for staff. And perhaps a resolution for consideration would be that it be recommended to the board that staff review and bring back to a future meeting the overall vehicle requirements of the organization, which would include budget considerations with a focus on supporting the regional fire chief's outcomes in the fire services review.
Where's Matt?
Yeah, just to respond to Heather's thing about insurance and parking a vehicle in a private driveway or whatever. That's got nothing to do with anything. These guys park their vehicles everywhere. Your chief lives in Pemberton, parks his vehicle here. There's insurance, all that stuff is covered. So that's not an issue at all, so. I think we're
The
just,
issue is we have debate here between elected officials and staff don't seem to want this vehicle. And it's very clear that some of us do. So I'd like to have something come back from staff that includes a report from Director of Emergency Services. We have available funding options here. We've had Director Mack suggest that he is prepared to put a lot of funding into this from Area C on behalf of the region. And that's something we should not ignore. So. Give it to those, Jones.
Well, I think that's a really generous offer. I don't think it's necessarily fair, but what I don't know is what's gonna come out of this report that's going to be giving us some clarification on what we're expecting the fire chief to do, right? In terms of service. And I don't even want Russell to spend money on a fire truck for, like, if we're not seeing some outreach to some of these brigades and cooperative community wildfire groups that we've got in some of the outlying areas. That's my interest. So if that's not going to be part of the service, then I'm not interested in having a truck. So I don't have enough information really. And I know that's going to annoy Director Mack, but.
We hired a regional fire chief.
And you guys are talking about this guy getting up and having foam in the truck and being on the scene of the fire and stuff. I'm like, whoa, we need some clarification on roles and responsibility. I'm already worried about that. And it's complicated in Area B. It's complicated everywhere, I'm sure, but I just know that we have a fire chief. And so, how many, you really only want one operating at a time. So I'm not sure what the role of the second fire chief, I'm not seeing this as an emergency response position. And if I'm wrong about that, please correct me.
yeah, with all due respect, that the regional fire chief, if he shows up on scene and once he gets briefed on what's happening, then he would become the incident commander.
So he would be an ally in operating, and that's great, but I don't know that.
And he's like, I know he's worked with the Perkin fellows, you know, the chief there and the ones up Permanent Meadows. I'm sure he's been out and about with other departments. And they've got a lot of good advice from him and working with him and that. So,
Wonderful.
you know, and I think too, I mean, we're in a growing pains way of doing this, but these guys they're pretty thorough on, you know, finding out what we need to do and how we need to do it. But back to the fire chief's position, you know, if there's a major fire, say in Birkin, where there's a lot of houses close together in the bush, so the Birkin Fire Department responds to that fire. Well, our fire chief should respond to that fire to back that chief up and give him advice or, you know, assistance, whatever. Take the load off being the incident commander, because potentially you could burn half that subdivision down in a very short amount of time, right? So, yeah, anyways.
I want more resources on fires. I'm all for it. I mean, that's like right up there at the top of my list of things that I'm worried about in Area B. It's even better. So I'm just not clear that that's that's what's happening. So yeah, probably we're going around in circles here.
We are, and we're actually talking about budget here.
I know.
And we asked staff to bring back a budget funding options for a dedicated regional fire chief vehicle. And we have a list of available options there, and Russell has suggested he was for
Okay.
Director Phillips.
Chair, again, so appreciate this conversation and the support. I would note that there is this conversation about how our modernization and the role of the SLRD partners. In terms of the overarching, we're talking wildfire, things like that, our team still, from our emergency management team, like Fuskin, Hezron, Fetrich, and also our wildfire mitigation team, with Mo, Lucia, Lenient, and also the LFRs who have taken operational roles in terms of going up to wildfires, when there's alerts and starting to clear brush and do. So I think, from my perspective, my biggest concern is by kind of pigeonholing this to this as a regional fire chief. There is a need from our department, and I think across the organization as our EOC is activated, and we do need the ability to go up to these different communities on a very short notice. That's really my only comment, is that I think that there's a broader need, and I think as we get more into the detail and understanding of our role, there's the structured fire services, which is led by our regional fire chief, we'll have a better understanding of the need. And so that's really my.
So then what I'm gonna say is this truck is a dedicated truck for the emergency management team. But the fire chief will be the #1 participant. The rest of your crew, use it as needed. But they need a dedicated vehicle. And it also should have red lights and all that kind of stuff. It should be an emergency type vehicle. It's not an actual fire truck.
Okay.
Because the fire truck is parked downstairs. It's a chief's vehicle, command vehicle, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. So we have some money in the budget that could be used to purchase a vehicle if we decide that we want a vehicle. So what we need is a recommendation from emergency services staff in general, however you want to say that, as to what kind of vehicle we need. The rest of it.
One thing with the community works funds is that it can be shared. Similar to when Director Mack volunteered $30,000 to Minto Communications of his community works funds. So there's no reason why all 4 areas could chip in.
So that's, Suzanne, we're not sure right now if we can use those funds to buy a fire truck, buy this vehicle.
It's definitely applicable to a fire truck. I'm not just sure if it'll be applicable to a chief's command vehicle type of fire truck. So we have to double check that.
Right.
Okay.
And also Area A and Area D do not have as much community works funds as Area C and B at the moment. So there would be an opportunity to share between all 4.
So there would be an opportunity, well, not on an equal basis.
Per capita. Per capita.
Well, there's different ways of sharing, and it could, we could put money in from each area. Okay. So before we make any kind of decision, we need to know from you what the determination is about purchasing this vehicle. If it were all tricked out with emergency lights and all that kind of stuff, so it's and painted red and all, and maybe has some sort of foam extinguisher thing on the back, just so that it does have some sort of capability there. Maybe it does qualify as a truck. You're going to say something? I'm sorry, I thought you wanted to say.
No, you. Never mind.
And if I could recommend, I think this will be a budget amendment. We'll just keep the budgets as is, and then once this is decided, we can amend the budget. Because it's not gonna be taxation funds anyway. That's what it sounds like.
Right.
Okay.
So I think that amending the budget when everything is understood is the best thing.
I'm trying to bring this to a closure.
I just got a question for Angela. Do you need a motion or something regarding that modernization funding? Or staff will look into it before the board meeting if they can do it in one year? You need a motion?
No. Through the chair, it would be preferred if we have motions.
Yes.
It will be additional staff work outside of what has been recommended in work plans already. So there is the potential for two recommendations.
Yes.
Where there's a vehicle conversation happening at the table right now, as well as changing the timeline associated with the fire services modernization. So
Okay.
taking that into consideration.
Do we need a resolution about the vehicle? Given what's already in this report? What would it say to direct staff to determine whether we can spend certain funds on purchasing that vehicle?
I would suggest if there's continued research that's required on behalf of staff, there's been a number of conversations that have happened at the table. It sounds as though we are now speaking about a vehicle that may be specific to protective services. So perhaps it's that staff review and bring back to a future meeting, vehicle requirements for the protective services department, including different funding options.
Isn't that something Suzanne's already doing? Aren't you already doing that, checking that out?
But I think with the report, it's probably good to add the financial.
To have a resolution?
Because there'll
Okay.
be maintenance and gas required from somewhere, from some budget, right?
Sure, okay. So, would someone like to move that as suggested by Dr. Wilson? Moved by Dr. Max, seconded by the Mayor. Any further comment or question? Hearing none, call a question, all in favour? Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Director Mack.
All you need to do for the truck wise is talk to the fire chief downstairs. Get the specs on the truck that's parked in front of his office. And that will cover whatever we need to have. Because they've got that set up for wildland firefighting with a slide-in pump and tank.
Second,
Pardon?
second motion, you had two things you
Yes.
suggested first.
Sorry, I had not captured a second motion, only that there were two conversations. And I guess the second one being that staff review and bring back to a future meeting options around compressing the timeline associated with the fire services modernization project.
Yep, I'd like to.
Does that
do
make sense, Director Phillips?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, it does. You're moving that? You're seconding that?
Yep.
Any questions on that? Call the question, all in favour? Opposed? Carries.
I'd just like to make a comment. We've got the Raylorn volunteer fire department tax service. We got the Gun Lake Fire Department tax service. We've got the Go Bridge Fire Department that is looking to be a tax service. We've got the Cotton Lake Gun Creek Road Fire Brigade under the Tyotin Lake Ratepayers Association. And we've got the Marshall Valley Fire Brigade under the BRVCA as a committee. So and we've got more up in area B,
We do.
and we've got some in area C, and I presume that sooner or later we're gonna have one in the Squamish Valley.
There's one up, there is one in the Squamish Valley.
So we've got a number of these, and with the interest in training and all the rest of it that goes along with it, the community cooperative wildfire response program, I think it's critical that we try to get this modernization completed as soon as possible. It's important for everybody, including the regional district, municipalities, as fire could start in one of the electoral areas and quickly engulf one of the communities.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to double check, did we pass the motion that Angela so thoughtfully put forward? We did? Okay,
Yeah.
good. I also am thrilled that we're saving 8 cents per taxpayer on that. And I really appreciate Suzanne's time and patience with us on budget items. Thank you.
Which might change. Project coming back in 2025.
Thank you.
It's lunchtime.
I know.
So I'm just looking at, is there anything else we need to do for finance department? Do we need any further motions or?
There is just a recommendation for the board to approve the budgets as, with any changes that the EAD committee would like to see, so.
So I can move that.
We can state that potentially the emergency planning budget will be updated with the fire modernization review decision, but everything else should be as displayed, so we can. Not sure about the resolution for the emergency planning, because it'll be a quick turnaround for me to update the budgets.
Okay, so we need a resolution to basically accept this as presented with the understanding that there's going to be the possibility of some amendments with regard to emergency services. Would that cover it?
Yeah.
I'll move that.
Moved by Director Mayor, seconded by Director Birch-Jones. All in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Lunchtime.
Now, yes, it is. So we're going to have a break now for lunch. Is it important what we're going? You can go 30 minutes.
20 is good for me.
That is good for you.
I know we have another meeting.
20 minutes. Okay. I call this meeting back to order. We're on number 8.1, request for funding, Britannia Beach Community Association, that's me. Funding of $30,000 be granted to Britannia Beach Community Association from Area D Select Funds for the purchase of community hall equipment and supplies with check rate payable upon receipt of invoice. Basically, what I want right now is a commitment to put this money aside on behalf of the Britannia Beach Community Association so that they can then go fundraise. It would be much easier for them to fundraise if they can go to a business entity and say,
Yeah, and show they have money.
we need 60, we've got 30, you know, it's kind of matching funds if you like.
Leverage.
And yeah, give them some leverage and sort of the motive for that is I really believe that they're in a situation right now, not of their own making. That if we'd have been smarter a few years ago, we might have made some decisions that would have avoided this situation. And I think it's incumbent on us to take some proactive steps to help them. And so that's what this is. It's not a request from the association for the money, it's a request from me to allocate the money to be able to say to them, you have it, now get to work and raise the rest of what you need. Thank you. 34.
Just a question. So there aren't projects already anticipated, or there are?
It is specifically to equip the community hall.
Okay,
Tables, chairs, dishes, curtains, they need special curtains there because the windows are just single glazed. Because it's a heritage building. So you can get these curtains that will
Insulate.
Yeah, basically.
Nice.
So the total bill is going to be around 60,000.
and do we retain ownership of the equipment that goes into the building, or is this a gift to the community that we no longer own? As in the tables and the curtains and the.
Yeah. That whole thing is up in the air.
Okay.
As to who owns that, who's going to own it, who's going to have the lease and all of that. for it to operate at all, it needs to be equipped. So, yeah, the money is being given to them to spend on equipping, making the hall functional. I guess the equipment will belong to the BBCA. And we'll see what happens as we progress in terms of.
I think that's fine. I have no
Yeah.
problem with that.
No, no,
I just,
no,
I think it's important for us to know what our expectation is if we have to replace it, if it breaks whatever it.
At the moment, the SLRD has no involvement or interest in that building. No. So, and it may end up that way. There are several possible outcomes. One is that the BBCA will hold the lease, a 99-year lease. They don't really want to, they don't feel they're equipped to do it. But it's possible. Second one is that it's been discussed here that the SLRD will hold the lease, but that didn't happen and may not happen. Third possibility is that McDonald's will retain ownership of the building and to comply with the intent of the zoning, hire someone to manage it and make it available to the community. It's complicated, but we just want to get it up and running so that it can be used. And this is a necessary part of that.
I'll second your motion.
Okay, without further ado, I'll call the question. Opposed, motion
I
carries.
just gotta make a quick phone call home, Chair.
We'll lose Farron, okay.
Okay, hold, do you have to do it right? This really.
Okay,
Yes,
because we
won't have-
recess.
We won't have quorum. I'll have to, how long do you need?
a minute.
A minute? Okay, we'll just recess briefly then. 9.1, and we're gonna do 9.1, 9.2, and 9.6.
Yes, so I'm gonna declare a conflict of interest on agenda item 9.1, 9.2, and 9.6. As my wife is on the board of directors. And my daughter is a staff member. Thank you.
Thank you. So 9.1 is,
I'd like to make a motion on 9.1. That we fund from select area A, $1,500 to support the 2025 mining for gold, Ridge River Valley Writers Retreat.
seconded by Eric Mack.
I think this is a beautifully prepared request with all the information
Yep.
and I think it's kind of a thrilling event and they did this before and they're gonna do it again. I love it, Writers Retreat up there. So, yeah,
They're actually gonna go and mine for gold, though, I think, and if they make some
in
money.
the
they
sense of
return it to us.
literary, yes.
Okay, very good. Call the question, all in favour, opposed, motion carries, thank you. So we'll proceed to 9.2, which is. Oh, this is
Another
fun.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'll find it.
So this is,
Marshall Valley Fire Station.
exactly. River Valley Community Association. Requesting funding of $4,060.26 from electoral area A select funds towards the costs associated with 2 community fire smarting events, etc. If you'd like me to read it all, but it's really, again, laid out. This is our grant writer, Lori Reimer, working here. I can't imagine there's any question regarding
Who's that?
Lori Reimer, our grant writer. She just does such a good job.
Yeah, it's nicely laid out. Okay, so you're moving that,
Yeah,
and Director Mack has seconded it. And local question, all in favour, motion carries.
I'm curious to know if staff have had any involvement in this, but I'll ask Sal. that motion.
In,
In this fire smarting, I just asked a question about fire smarting and my response was.
we could ask the right to Phillips right now if you wanted to.
Do you think that staff have any involvement in this community fire smarting event that Sal's planning in the Bridge River Valley?
Through the chair, I don't believe so, although I will go back to mode and our LFRs on
Yeah, it's
that.
not fair to ask, you just got here.
I know, out of my understanding, this is about debris
Yeah.
removal, and I think our team, as we don't have an infinite budget that for each of these communities, I know there is some money allotted for one or two kind of events, there'll be debris disposal event, but we're definitely supportive of this, and I think the more support for fire smarting, the better. But I know our LFRs are in the community and they're just getting going now, so I'm sure they will be
They are.
involved.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move now to 9.6, which is a request for funding Bray Lawn Pioneer Museum Society. Collection Management Project Works.
Yeah.
$5,000 from Elector A Select Funds towards the museum's collection management project, including administrative staff support and the purchase of specialized archival materials and supplies. That's moved by Director Matt, seconded by Director Birch-Jones. Any questions or comments?
Just keep doing your good work.
All in favour? Opposed, motion carries. I'm gonna have to drive up there one day and go.
Oh, it's
see the museum.
fantastic what they're doing. Well, we'll be talking about the Northern Board Tour after this meeting.
So now we'll go to, we'll wait until.
Sal comes back.
Sal's eating the cake.
What? That's, Sal's eating the cake?
So. Put a lock on it.
Back on its detention.
Oh,
Okay, so we're back to 9.3. Request for funding Lillooet Community Bursary Committee, graduates bursaries.
as in previous years, I've given $5,000 to the, well, Area B. Should watch that wording, to the Lillooet Community Bursary Fund. And I'd like to make a motion to do the same, again, $5,000 from Area B Select Funds to the Lillooet Community Bursary Fund for this year's grads.
That's interesting, so
I'll second it.
seconded by, so it's not the school that runs that then, it's a separate entity?
Kim is a very influential and long-term teacher there, and they have a small committee that oversees the bursaries.
Oh,
That's the bursary committee. And they know these kids really well, that they know who needs help and who's going where, and I'm really glad to support them.
oh no, I absolutely, I just, most schools, they do it within the school, it's just interesting that it's a separate entity. But very good, money's going where it needs to go, and we're on to now 9.4, request for.
Nope, that's been moved and seconded. I'm just.
Oh, didn't I bother to ask? Okay, all in favour? Opposed? Carries. Request for funding Lillooet Elks Lodge number 467, revitalization of the Lillooet Elks Community Hall.
Yes, a motion for Area B Select Funds for $2,000 to support the revitalization of the Lillooet Elks Community Hall, and also, and probably more importantly, help leverage additional grant applications. They're going to need more than $2,000. You might see another request, but this is a one-time thing in the sense that once they have this hall fixed up, they will be able to hold events, including bingos, and those are profitable, they're busy, and then they wind up giving out money to other community groups. So I would like to see them revitalized.
Okay, second. Director Mack, any questions? No question, all in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 9.5, request for funding House Sound Biosphere Region Initiative Society. That's a mouthful. Britannia Valley Story Map. Thank you. This, I'm going to move this. I'd never heard of story maps until I sat down with Ruth Simons and she told me all about it. And basically what it does is, it surveys a defined geographical area. Maps out what has happened there in the past, what's happened there now, and suggests things that could happen in the future. It's very, it's online, not interactive. You know, it can be updated easily. It's not as though it's a printed book that once it's done, it's done. And it's of use, was of general interest for a start. But it's of use to planning departments, it's of use to essentially to emergency services, there's several uses. The one they want to do after this is over on the other side of the sound. In the dam, oh, the name's gone out, like Henrietta, yeah. It's a dam on a creek directly above Woodfibre. And they're going to look at that valley, and that would be particular interest because that, yeah, potential for potential. So anyway, I'm asking for $10,000 from area B, area D, select funds to support this. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Make a comment.
Absolutely.
You got a couple of links in there and you can look through it. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, it is.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's good project.
They've done one on the Squamish Valley. This one, they want to do one on Ferry Creek. Because you actually work all the way around the sound, and eventually, say in 20 years' time, they'll have sort of a complete assessment of pretty well every little valley that comes into the sound. There we go. Good. So, did I call the question on that? I didn't. Okay. All in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Angela. 9.6. Any additional late business?
We have 11.1.
No, additional late business.
Oh.
All those items under late business we're going to come to.
Okay.
So it's just if somebody has something extra they want to bring in right now. No? Okay, we'll move along. Now we get into late business. Correspondence or action request for funding Birken Recreational and Cultural Society Easter event 2025.
Yeah, they've asked for an additional $1,000 towards their Easter event. We had already approved 3,000 last month. But with the, they're gonna get more people there this year, and the price of chocolate has gone up. So an Easter bunny costs more. So we need to pay.
Hard reality.
25%.
Kids need the chocolate. So I will make a motion to approve this.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion or comments on the price of chocolate or the persecution? of bunnies?
11.2.
Call the question, all in favour? Opposed, motion carries. Good, we're 11.2, request for funding. What is this? Because Squamish Public Library Service Delivery Study. Now, I'm sorry this kind of came in a bit late. Hilary Bloom, who is the director of the library, she and I have been talking for a while on expansion of library services into Area D, how we fund it and so on and so forth. And their board have some concerns about, they're interested in expanding, but then how do they pay for that expansion? So we've had on the books for probably 6 years now, maybe 7, developing a cost centre to support the Squamish Library. That would be for Upper Squamish Valley, Sandy Beach and Ferry Creek. I would not want to go to those communities right now and suggest a new cost centre. But what I would be interested in doing, and this is where Hilary and I have got to on this, is hiring somebody who knows what they're doing to go and do a survey in those 3 areas and talk to people about library services, talk to them about what they would like to see delivered in their areas, what they'd be prepared to pay for it, and so on and so forth. And I think if we do that groundwork, then we can determine whether it makes sense to go ahead with a cost center and to engage with the library board to increase their services, or whether it's time to pull back and say, no, not now, let's wait a few years. So Hillary said she has access to some money through various library grants that she can get to, but it would be really helpful if she had a commitment from Area D before she goes asking. So I thought, well, let's get this going sooner rather than later, so I asked to get it on this agenda, and there we are. I'm proposing that this come from $5,000 from Area D select funds. So I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Any questions, comments? Yeah, in favor, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. He's probably around here, where are we? Staff report, request for decision, Canada Community Building Fund, Community Works Fund, that it be recommended to the regional board that an additional $8,097 be allocated to the Braylon Sewer Service from Area A Community Works Funds towards the cost of sewer tie-ins for the Braylon sewer system.
I'll move it.
You're gonna move that, you're gonna second that. Director Mayor moved, Director Mack seconded. Any questions? Look at that, Colin.
Perfect,
Yeah.
easy.
All in favor? Oh, we haven't had the vote yet.
I have to say, the form that was developed, I think Suzanne developed it a couple of years ago, it works pretty well. And I'm familiar with it now, I like it.
Good. Good question. All in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Where are we at? Director's notice of motion. There are none. We're at number 13. I move this motion, I'm gonna make the motion, this meeting be adjourned.
I'll second it.
Anybody argue? No, you're in
Yeah.
favor, we're done.
Okay.
Yes,
Stay put with